views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey there, welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to writers and editors and photographers and videographers and filmmakers. And tonight, authors, because we are going to talk to a brand new author who has a brand new book out. But we are going to start out by saying hello to my friend who is a reporter and acting editor over there at the Norwood News. So Síle Moloney, nice to have you with us.
Hi, Gary. How are you doing?
We're doing well. I'm sure as a busy Bronx journalist, one of very few of us, you're busy as can be, aren't you?
Very busy. It's been a busy time, for everybody. But
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Hopefully things are somewhat returning to normal, hopefully, but it has been a hectic couple of months for sure.
One of our tasks is to define what normal means. Right now, I don't think any of us have an idea about what that means. When you pick up the phone and it is a news tip or a community person, what kinds of things are on their minds and what kinds of things are they, saying, hey, I got to reach out to the Norwood News to tell them this?
I mean, one thing that struck me that was completely out of the blue was when we posted a story after the mayor had participated at an event at the Armory way back at the beginning of the pandemic, and he was, discussing the fact that there was going to be a food distribution hub based there, and I think we posted a story about that. And after that, there were so many comments from people on the bottom of the article saying, "Please send food. We're in isolation. We're self-isolating." And I hadn't seen the comments, and I just felt so bad. These were just like basic priorities that were on people's minds, and I just hadn't even had time to check those comments. So obviously, as soon as I did, I passed on, those messages to elected officials to try and get them to get food to them. But that was just something I had never.
Mind blowing in every way. Well, yeah. That's a nice entree to our dialogue right now. Because I remember that story, and I remember, listen, the Armory is a big facility, could be used for a lot of things. Some think an ice center, but that's another question and another dialogue. And so I said, well, I wonder if they're going to use it for something. At that time, there was even discussion about needing it for beds. And then when I saw that, I was like, wow, the need is out there. And then it was expressed to you in personal terms. So what I'm getting at is that's a while ago. I don't have the date in front of me. It's at least a month ago. And things in the Bronx and in New York City and New York State happily have changed. Are we still getting calls? Do you still perceive that there is a need like that?
I literally, just before we went on the air, I literally got an email and people are still talking about food insecurity. So I need to look into that, this message that I got right after this. So
wow.
Yeah, it's obviously still a problem. Yeah.
This is really, something I think that neither of us appreciate as journalists, because we get all kinds of calls and, I receive people wanting to come on the show, and everybody, especially now, has an issue that they want to talk about. But this is really, to me, a real clue to what's going on out there. And, it's interesting because the recent dialogue, there was a protest at I believe, the county courthouse about the courts going back in business, housing court going back in business. And protesters are saying, wait a minute, we need to pay our rent. What I'm getting at, food actually becomes before that. You know what I mean? It's when you really break it down, believe me, I'm not saying it's a far second place, but food insecurity is a major thing. And it's sad, very sad, tragic that you're seeing it like that.
Absolutely, like primal protections for people. I mean, I attended the protest earlier this week. We'll be covering that hopefully, shortly in the next edition as well. But, what people were very clear about was that, it's not that people don't want to pay their rent. Obviously, everybody wants to pay their rent. It's just that right now they're finding it impossible to do so.
Yes, it's one of the many things that is going to be unfolding, and as impatient as we Americans are, and you're learning a lot about us. I know that. As impatient as we are, this is among the things we're going to have to relax about. One of the things that was in your paper is preparing for budget cuts at the community board level. Now, we're going to be on Bronx Talk Monday night with two council members to talk about the council budget in general. But, I mean, my personal feeling is we need as much grassroots as we can. And I mean, I've got the numbers, which is stolen out of your story in front of me, that their budget is $288,000. And, that's about it. And of course, there will be more budget cuts. So talk to me about what the grassroots Community Board 7 is talking about.
Right. So my colleague Jose covered this story and attended some of those community board meetings. What we understand is that 288,000 is like a standard, budget for all community boards. That's like a baseline budget. I'm not sure to what degree some community boards may have some leeway in terms of, increases or decreases on that base amount, but that's what was communicated. And that covers salaries, rent, daily operational expenses. There was an increase to that budget, thanks apparently to Council Member Fernando Cabrera, of 42,500, I believe it was last year. And that additional increase was to be allocated for events and equipment. Now we understand from Community Board 7 that the idea pre-pandemic was to improve the technological arrangement for community board meetings and to potentially, if I understand correctly, perhaps broadcast those. That was a long-term plan. I suppose to increase the reach of, community.
That sounds like something they want to talk to BronxNet television about.
Perhaps, yeah.
Perhaps.
Oh, yeah.
We heard it here first.
Yes.
Well, let me just talk about the nature of it, So even if the numbers, I mean, people may not be able to perceive the numbers as, indicating anything drastic. The need, though, as we expressed just a moment ago about food insecurity, about rent situations, about cleanliness in our streets, about, let's say, an organization needs some funding to get their masks, to put down the labels. I mean, all that stuff is money. And that's the kind of role a community board can play. I want to ask you a philosophical, did you want to add about that? Because I have a follow-up.
Oh, I just had one point to make that from what we understand, the priorities that CB7 identified for the budget were number 1, land use, number 2, schools, and then number 3, other expenses. And what the DOP were advising them was that they had to think carefully about whether those priorities aligned with—
Which is that Department of Parks?
The Department of Planning, sorry.
Oh, Planning, sorry, DCP, yeah.
DCP, excuse me, yeah. And whether or not, the community boards identified areas were aligned with the city's objectives in terms of what they believed were the priorities. But obviously they were looking for input from Community Board 7 and from all community boards in terms of, where to allocate funds, but it was kind of a two-way stream from what I understand.
I want to raise something that was brought up in the Riverdale Press that was very interesting to me, and that was in a meeting of Community Board 8. It was presented by one of their board members, Sergio Villaverde, that they ought to consider a resolution aimed at addressing systemic racism and injustice, not just in the community as a whole, but within the community board itself. Now, I pursued that to find out what they were really suggesting. And aside from looking at the composition of our community boards to see if they're representative, the dialogue was about, well, look at your community board. Is there systemic racism in the education system? Is there systemic racism in the parks funding? You know what I mean? I thought it was a fascinating concept to say, well, this is what people are saying. Maybe we can translate it and use our whatever authority or, So what do you think of that? What do you make of that? Do you think it's a good idea?
I mean, obviously, it's a good idea to address wherever there is racism, whether it's perceived or otherwise, to ensure that there are policies there to address it.
Should community boards undertake this as part of a movement? Like they all put out statements saying we support Black Lives Matter. You're going to put I'm pushing the envelope here. You can tell, I know, but I think it's a really interesting idea. And if you believe in these values, let's go, stand up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see an issue, just my personal opinion
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, putting in writing, commitments to diversity or to, ensuring that there is sufficient representation on the board. And I would add that, sometimes as well, it could be just a case of people from the community may want to put themselves forward as representatives on the community board. And it could be a matter of simply the meeting times don't suit them. And maybe it's a question of just addressing those kind of barriers to allow more people to join the process.
More inclusion. Wow, that is a tremendous suggestion. I think this is an interesting dialogue to have across the board. And then the whole other, and it, that is another question, is the ethnic composition, just to make sure there's representation. I mean, I'm not going, just as long as people's interests from their perspectives are represented. On that note, we got maybe about a minute. Are you getting a lot of calls about racism, about people not being treated fairly? Or, goodness, I hope not, because I don't like to think about that in the Bronx.
Of course. I mean, honestly, I think a lot of the correspondence was, when we would put out a story about a protest, we would get a lot of feedback, sometimes on the articles, on our social media, etc. And sometimes I think maybe it's a question of, and obviously we want people to interact with us. Sometimes I think that the wider public may not appreciate that as a news organization, you're not, while you may have a personal opinion or view on a particular topic, there is a journalistic requirement.
Yes, well, we're almost out of time. Let me add that what's come out of the White House is that if you have your own way, which we all have our own personal opinions, if you have that means you can't be fair at your job. I know you believe totally the opposite, and I sit in this chair and my face in the public every week, and I know that I feel that way, but everybody's been told that we're fake,
Yeah, well, you have to check yourself and ensure that you are, and
Yeah, and I know, Síle, what a great way to end this conversation. The Norwood News, they've been just doing that. They've been providing real journalism with an edge. You can agree, disagree, but that's the beauty of sharing information like we did this evening on the Bronx Buzz. Síle, thank you so much. You okay? We're good?
Great. Thank you so much, Gary. Good talking.
We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we are going to talk to a young Bronx author, and you're going to love meeting her, and you're going to love hearing about her launch party that's coming for her brand new book. Don't go away.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scales of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting to the new reality.
Reporting from BronxNet, this is Trans.
Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. I am really excited because one of the hallmarks of BronxNet television and all of our programs is that we bring out artists and writers and all kinds of people that the Bronx has never seen who they should see. And so this evening it is my esteemed pleasure to have Justine Manzano with us. Hi, Justine. Nice to have you with us.
Hi, Gary.
The reason Justine is here, she has a book coming out. It's her first book. And we're going to tell the world about it tonight, exclusively on the Bronx Buzz. But a little background, Justine, you are from where and where did you grow up? And just how did you get into writing?
I've lived in Morris Park all my life. So born and raised.
You go to Columbus?
I did go to Columbus, yes.
Okay.
And I started writing from when I was very young. I just kind of always would jot down my thoughts and things like that, and was also really into the more geeky side of things. I loved watching like sci-fi TV shows, and I'd make up my own stories and things like that. And I was just always kind of like, my creative juices were always going.
And this is about what age? This is through Columbus High School, or we're talking
before? I've always been, I want to say elementary school. I went to PS 108.
So when they take a blood test, that's what comes out. Those images, those ideas.
Exactly.
It is literally
in the blood.
Right.
And yeah, so I was doing that for a while. I took a break and I went into acting for a little bit, and that didn't really pan out. And when I was done with that, I was like, I think I'm going to give this a shot for real. And went to college for wriing. And
where did you go to college?
I went to Hunter College.
Mm-hmm. Boy, is this ever a New York City girl? My goodness.
Yes. I always say, like, I like between Manhattan and the Bronx, that's where it all comes from.
For those of us, it's that 4-letter word, home. Anyway, go ahead. So then you did it, and now how many years are you out of college at this point?
Well, I'm out of college for a bit. I went back. I went back when I was a little older because I couldn't afford college out of the gate. So left for a little while, went back, and I finished college in 2009. And I want to say that I picked up writing. I had been writing on and off and would take it with different levels of seriousness. But I when I had my son in 2009, right after I got out of college, I realized that I could kind of do anything. It was the first few months were really rough. And when by the time I went back to work, I was like, I can do this. I got this. I'm gonna. Yeah.
So let's the book. I didn't mention the name of it. The book is The Order of the Key. So we should cue Paul Schaefer in the drum roll there, and let him, ladies and gentlemen, is called The Order of the Key. I have a lot that I want to ask you about it, but when did you get the idea of it, and what made you say, out of all the things I think about, this is the book?
This story has been in my head since high school. Not in the exact way that it looks now, but the couple of the main characters, and I kind of kept throwing them into different situations and trying to figure out the right story for those characters. And I think when I finally decided that moment when I decided I'm going to take this seriously, I'm going to become a writer, was really the moment that I started to nail down exactly what I wanted to do. And
how long did it take you to write this particular tome?
This book took forever. I have another book I finished in like a year, and this book was just, I just kept revising it. I kept getting feedback on it. I wanted to write a book that was like 3 times the size, and that wasn't working.
No, but that's probably a good thing, because then you edited it down in your own mind. And so then you came out with really the best of it, because you said, well, this part of it is just kind of like my crazy idea. Let's really focus on a book, right? Did I get that?
That is exactly right. It was much longer. There were more characters, probably too many characters to digest. And over time, it evolved into what you see.
You have not mentioned the one thing that I believe, and that's only from looking at the outside, that I believe defines the nature of the book and would help people to understand who should read it. And you did not mention comic books. And I'm willing to guess, based on what I see here about the book, that even just your vision of things comes out of comic books. Do I have that right?
Yes, you are right. I was a major superhero fan. Most of my internet presence involves me talking about comic books. I mean, I've been steeped in DC and Marvel all my life. So, from reading my brother's comic books.
So what this is, and I brought this up, so I'm going to finish the sentence then. So what this is, what the Order of the Key is a young Bronx woman who has comic books in her head. You heard what her background is, and now she's spitting out this fantastical story that she has been writing for many years. Do I have that right?
That's 100% correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So now I'm going to do something fun that you never expected. Okay. Oh, before we do that, I want to let people know that Saturday at 2 p.m., Saturday, July 11th at 2 p.m., there is a YouTube launch party, right? Yes. And do you serve cookies and cake, or what?
I wish I could. The original plan was a live party where I could serve cookies and cake, but that's not the world we're in right now. So there will be party games though, and I will be mailing out little prize packets for people. So that will be fun, and it'll all be like, I'll be asking questions of the audience, and people can type in, and it'll be a fun time.
And I'm sure it'll be great, because you are clearly the kind of person that can't sit still, and you get an opportunity to chat with people, and you can goof around and certainly promote the book. And we want people to buy the book and read the book and all that. So I'm sure it's just going to be great. How do they log in? Do they have to register, or can they just go to like YouTube and put in Justine Manzano? What do they got to do?
All they have to do is go to YouTube. It's like any other YouTube live video. So just go to the channel on the day of, and it is Justine Manzano. If you want to go to my website, justinemanzano.com, there is a direct link where you can also set a reminder if you want, so that it'll remind you to go on. And then you just go in and with your regular Gmail, and you can type questions, you can view it. I'll try to answer everything. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, well, you're answering everything today. Okay, so that was my introduction to do what I'm about to do. I'm just going to read the blurb that came off your website, because I want people to understand, and there is a specific audience here to start. Believe me, we'd love it to go larger. But here we go. This is what the book is about. Jacqueline Madison never expected to be attacked by a beast on an evening snack run. Add a rescue mission enacted by a trained regiment of teenage warriors, and her night officially becomes just like a scene from one of her beloved comic books. There you go. So the audience, when you do television, I know because I do it. When you write newspapers or articles, I know that you do it. When you write a book, when you wrote this book, did you think of the people who would enjoy it most?
Yes.
And tell me who those people are, because we want to reach out to those people and have them know about the Order of the Key.
I was writing to the teenager I was before.
Wow.
And that was the
I didn't know we were going to do a psychotherapy section here.
I mean, it sounds crazy, but it was. That's exactly what it was. I loved books like this. I loved something that I could escape in and have a good time and sort of forget my troubles for a little while and believe I was, magical. And this was the audience I was, because I know that I'm not alone there. I know there are plenty of teenagers now that are feeling the same way, particularly as they're stuck in their homes right now, like we all are. But and I felt like this was going to be hopefully a love letter to those kids who just, want to escape for a little while and have and see some magic.
I did an interview on Bronx Talk this week with 5 high school art students, and they each, they all had different things that they were attracted to. They were award winning. One of the young man, off the top of my head, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, was from the Millennium Art Academy. He was talking about, and he made a book that won like the Ezra Jack Keats Award, which is a very prestigious award. He was talking about how he loved horror as a child. Now you could sit there and evaluate maybe why or why not, but he loved it, and he expressed it in a book, a full picture book that won an award. I think that's the kind of person, people who love comics, people who love sci-fi. That's who we're talking to, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely it. People who love a little bit of magic in their lives.
That's good. And now, is it written in a vernacular that works for younger people, for older people? Especially if it's a love letter to you as a teenager.
Well, to other teenagers like me. It sounds very conceited if I say it's a love letter to me, right? But it's written for teenagers. I think that works. I think that adults will love it too, but
adults who want to be transported.
Yes.
And in this day and age, who doesn't want to be transported?
I want to too.
Yeah. Well, you're taking us there. You got the spaceship. I want to just address one thing for somebody who hasn't done a lot of publishing. What's the process like now? Is it easier or harder because there's self-publishing and all those kinds of things?
It's a weird environment. There's this book is small press published, but I've considered self-publishing and also big publishers.
Well, we certainly would love that. I mean, I didn't want to presume anything, but
it is. Well, my thing was that for this book, it was not the right time in the market for it. People weren't publishing this type of book when I was shopping it, which is why I went smaller. But it was very hard to break into big publishing because they have their phases, they have their trends.
Yeah, of course.
And I wasn't on trend, and I it's my curse. I'm never on trend. Right
even if you think that you are on that trend, they are always in some other place.
they've since moved on and gone to the next thing, but it is more competitive, I think.
Right.
Now.
So I'm going to be very quick because we got to run out.
Sure.
The trade-off is either you got to go through doing it yourself, which, okay, good, be a book publisher. The other side is getting somebody to do it for you, and and that, of course, is a full-time job dealing with that as well. So the book is The Order of the Key. It is Justine Manzano. Go to justinemanzano.com, right? Yes. And you can check in, be there, and fly to a new world and have a lot of fun Saturday at 2 o'clock, excuse me.
2 o'clock,
Saturday at 2 o'clock, so you get enough time to wake up and have breakfast and have lunch. And
that was the plan.
That was the plan. And then you can have a nice Saturday afternoon, socially distant, with Justine. Thank you so much for joining us in the Bronx Buzz.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
The Order of the Key. Check it out. And it'll be available beginning Saturday everywhere. Right?
Yes, actually, it'll be available starting tomorrow.
Never too soon. Thank you so much for joining us. Folks, what a pleasure. Two really interesting and different types of guests. And on Monday night, we're going to be talking the city council budget with 2 Bronx council members. That'll be on Bronx Talk at 9 o'clock. And then we'll be back on the Bronx Buzz, and we'll just keep talking and talking and talking. Everybody take care, stay safe, wear a mask, and stay apart. Watch BronxNet television. Goodbye.